Who had Germany finally losing that legendary World Cup penalty record to Paraguay on their bingo card?
We didn't expect going out in the round of 32. And the way we went out, I think, hugely disappointing.
For decades, football had this idea that Germany simply did not lose shootouts when the stakes got huge.
64 games, 171 goals, 20-odd men, kicked a ball around for 120 minutes, and at the end, do I really need to tell you, the Germans won.
That reputation felt untouchable. Until now, Germany will point at the disallowed goal and feel hard done by, but over 120 minutes, they created almost nothing. The truth is, they never played well enough to make penalties irrelevant in the first place.
And then it looked really, at the very end, it looked like they were not prepared for penalty shootout, which is for us insane because we love penalty shootouts usually.
And he's blazed it over the top!
Nagelsmann made one of his boldest calls of the tournament by leaving out Jamal Musiala and switching to a 4-4-2 with Dennis Undav. The plan was clear: create more attacking chances while making Germany safer against counters. Instead, it delivered neither. The attack lost even more spark and looked flat for long stretches. And once again, the same defensive issues that followed Germany all tournament came back at the worst possible moment. Paraguay's goal was not some unstoppable piece of magic. It came from basic attacking movement that exposed bad positioning and individual mistakes all over again, which makes this result feel even crazier when you remember the opening games. Germany smashed Curacao 7-1, while Paraguay lost 4-1 in their opener. On paper, nobody saw this coming, but plenty of German fans will say the warning signs had been flashing the whole time. Even against Curacao, Germany looked shaky at the back despite the scoreline. Then came Ivory Coast, where they barely escaped with 3 points. Germany spent large parts of that game trailing 1-0, and it took a Dennis Undav masterclass mixed with missed chances from the opposition to flip the result. Then came the loss to Ecuador in the final group match. A lot of people brushed it aside and called it meaningless because Germany had already moved on, but the problems were sitting right there in plain sight. Now all the questions are getting louder. Why did Leroy Sané keep starting despite struggling through most of the tournament? Should Kimmich have been moved back into midfield earlier? Why was Neuer, now 40, still trusted as the first choice? Those conversations are only getting started because for a football country that built its identity on winning pressure moments, losing a World Cup knockout match on penalties after being heavily favored is going to sting for a long time. And maybe the toughest part for German fans is that this doesn't even feel new anymore. Germany have now failed to reach the round of 16 for the third straight World Cup. Ever since Philipp Lahm lifted the trophy in Rio, this national team has never really reached those same heights again. The German Football Association spent years building that generation. Massive investment went into youth systems, coaching, sports science, and creating a machine-like football structure. For a while, it worked perfectly. Germany became one of the smartest and most organized football nations on the planet, but the strange part is that winning the World Cup may have also started the decline. After 2014, a quiet sense of comfort started creeping into the national team. There seemed to be this belief that Germany would always solve problems eventually, because Germany always had before. That mindset became dangerous. While other countries evolved tactically and adapted fast, Germany held on to old patterns for too long. Coaches kept trusting the same core group that delivered success in Brazil, even when some players were declining physically or struggling badly at club level. The edge disappeared. The hunger that made Germany so ruthless in 2014 slowly faded, and by the time they arrived at the 2018 World Cup, the cracks were impossible to ignore. Even before kickoff, there were warning signs everywhere. Germany looked slow and messy in preparation matches, including a 2-1 defeat to Austria and an unconvincing 2-1 win over Saudi Arabia. But inside the camp, there was still confidence that once the tournament started, everything would click. It didn't. In the opener against Mexico, Germany's tactical setup completely unraveled. Joachim Löw pushed an aggressive high line while Germany controlled possession in a slow and predictable way. Mexico spotted the gaps instantly and punished them over and over in transition. Germany looked stretched, exposed, and one step behind all game. They lost 1-0 in one of the biggest shocks of the tournament. Then came the dramatic win over Sweden. Germany survived thanks to Toni Kroos producing a ridiculous late free kick, and suddenly people started talking again about the famous German mentality. But looking back, that comeback covered up bigger issues. The tactical problems never disappeared. Against South Korea, Germany collapsed all over again. South Korea read Germany's slow passing patterns perfectly and shut down their attack across the field. And the numbers were brutal. Germany took 67 shots during the group stage and converted only 4% of them. That was the worst conversion rate of any team at the tournament. Chance after chance disappeared with almost nothing to show for it. At the same time, Löw stayed loyal to experienced names like Mesut Ozil, Thomas Müller, and Julian Draxler, while leaving Leroy Sané out completely despite Sané coming off an excellent season in England. What makes this whole thing feel strange now is how the story flipped. Sané is now on the other side of the debate under Nagelsmann. He kept getting selected while many German fans felt there were stronger options available and questioned whether his performances still justified the role. Then came the final collapse. South Korea scored twice in stoppage time and sent Germany out in the group stage for the first time in the nation's World Cup history. For a country built on consistency, deep tournament runs, and showing up in the biggest moments, it felt impossible to believe. And now, years later, those old questions still have not fully gone away. After the disaster of the 2018 World Cup, most people expected Germany to hit reset immediately. And almost any other football powerhouse, a defending champion crashing out in the group stage, would have meant the manager was gone on the spot. But the German Football Association stayed loyal to Joachim Löw and handed him another chance to rebuild. That decision ended up stretching the decline even longer. Löw tried to refresh the squad, bring in new faces, and reshape the team. But the whole project started to feel unclear and disconnected. Germany never truly rebuilt a strong identity after 2018. The football lacked energy, balance, and belief, while tactical experiments often created more confusion instead of fixing problems. And before Euro 2020 even kicked off, things were already getting ugly. Germany suffered one rough result after another, including a brutal 6-0 defeat against Spain and a frustrating home loss to North Macedonia during World Cup qualifying. Confidence kept dropping, and the pressure kept building. By the time Euro 2020 finally happened in 2021 after the delay, the mood around the national team felt strange. Löw had already announced he would leave after the tournament, so Germany entered the competition feeling like a team caught between generations with no clear long-term direction. Tactically, the frustration only kept growing. Löw stayed committed to a rigid 3-4-3 setup that never fully matched the strengths of the players available. One of Germany's strongest midfielders, Joshua Kimmich, spent long stretches operating wide as a wingback instead of controlling games through the middle where many believed he had more influence. Meanwhile, Thomas Müller looked uncomfortable in his role, and the back three repeatedly left spaces that opponents attacked with ease. Germany fell behind in every single match at the tournament. Even the famous 4-2 win over Portugal felt messy and chaotic instead of controlled. Then came the round of 16 against England at Wembley. For a lot of German fans, that match felt like watching an entire era close in real time. Germany played slow football, predictable football, and football that barely created danger. England looked calm throughout and won 2-0 without needing to push to another level. And just like that, Joachim Löw's 15-year era came to an end. Then came Hansi Flick. When Flick became Germany manager, excitement exploded. After everything that had gone wrong under Löw, Flick looked like the perfect choice to modernize the team again. He had just won every major trophy possible with Bayern while playing aggressive, high-energy football that overwhelmed opponents physically and tactically. People expected that same energy to transform Germany. At first, the signs looked promising. Germany cruised through qualification, scored freely, and finally seemed to have direction again. But under the surface, some old problems never disappeared. The defensive weaknesses were still there, they just stayed, hidden for a little longer. Then came the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. And almost immediately, the tournament became complicated both on and off the field. Before Germany even played a match, discussions around Qatar's human rights situation created huge attention around the team. The players' pre-match photo, where they covered their mouths, became one of the most talked about moments of the tournament. Back in Germany, reactions were deeply divided. Some people supported the gesture. Others felt the focus should stay completely on football. Either way, the spotlight became intense around a squad that already seemed emotionally under pressure and short on strong leadership voices. Then the football started, and somehow the opening game against Japan felt way too familiar. Germany controlled possession, spent long periods on top, and took a 1-0 lead. But they kept wasting opportunities. Chance after chance disappeared. The finishing lacked sharpness, game management looked uncertain, and defensively, Germany still looked vulnerable whenever opponents attacked with speed. Then, everything unraveled late in the match. Germany lost defensive structure during the final stages. Changes disrupted the rhythm, gaps opened up, and Japan punished them with 2 quick goals. Another collapse. Another painful flashback. Germany responded with a hard-fought 1-1 draw against Spain, and then beat Costa Rica 4-2 in a wild final group match, but it wasn't enough. Spain's huge win over Costa Rica earlier in the tournament left Germany behind on goal difference. For the second straight World Cup, Germany crashed out in the group stage. Historically, that felt almost impossible to process. And outside of one player, the entire squad looked lost. Jamal Musiala became the bright spot. The young midfielder completed 34 dribbles during the group stage and constantly looked like the one player capable of making something happen from nothing. Every time Germany needed energy, unpredictability, or danger, Musiala seemed to be the answer. But around him, the team looked slow, disconnected, vulnerable in transition, and shaky when pressure increased. For a country once known for control, composure, and showing up in tournament moments, this felt like another major fall. Then, Julian Nagelsmann arrived in late 2023, and suddenly people started believing again. Nagelsmann represented something different. He was younger, modern, tactically flexible, and felt like a clean break from previous eras. After years of slow and predictable football, he immediately tried to bring speed, intensity, freedom, and movement back into the national team. For a while, it actually looked like progress was happening. During spring 2024, Germany produced some genuinely encouraging performances, including strong wins over France and the Netherlands. For the first time in years, German fans seemed excited to watch their national team again. There was a growing feeling that maybe the dark period after 2018 and 2022 was finally ending. Then came Euro 2024 at home. The atmosphere across Germany felt electric. The team played with more energy, more personality, and more belief than they had shown in previous tournaments. Fans reconnected emotionally with the squad. Nagelsmann helped restore pride around the national side. The quarterfinal exit against Spain brought back some familiar frustration, but overall, the performances looked improved. And many supporters still point to the controversial handball moment involving Cucurella as one of those decisions that changed the feeling of the tournament. Some believe Germany could have gone further. Still, compared with where the team had been before the tournament, there was clear progress. The problem was that once the Euros ended, the optimism around Nagelsmann started fading fast. Instead of building stability after Euro 2024, Germany stepped into another cycle of tactical experiments, confusing lineup calls, and squad decisions that split opinion across the country. Some fans still believe Julian Nagelsmann is the right guy to lead Germany forward because of his modern ideas and willingness to evolve the way the national team plays. Others think Germany is slowly sliding back toward the same pattern that hurt previous generations. Too many changes, too many questions, not enough identity when the pressure gets highest. One of the biggest controversies of Nagelsmann's era exploded just days before the 2026 World Cup squad announcement, and somehow it centered around the one position Germany usually never has to stress about: goalkeeper. After Manuel Neuer retired from international football following Euro 2024, the path looked simple. Marc-Andre ter Stegen finally seemed set to become Germany's long-term number one after spending years waiting behind Neuer. Then everything changed. Ter Stegen picked up an injury, underwent back surgery, and later found himself falling out of the picture at club level. Suddenly, Germany had a serious problem heading into the World Cup. That's when Oliver Baumann entered the story. At 35, the Hoffenheim keeper became one of Germany's most dependable players during qualification, although opinions around him still stayed divided. But here's where things got messy. Reports suggested Nagelsmann personally reassured Baumann during the March 2026 international break that he would remain Germany's starter for the World Cup, even if Neuer returned in a supporting role. Then came the shock. On May 19th, 2026, just 2 days before the official squad reveal, reports claimed Nagelsmann called Baumann directly and told him Neuer was returning from international retirement and would immediately become Germany's starting goalkeeper again. The reaction was huge. A lot of people inside German football criticized not just the decision, but the way it was handled. Former goalkeeper Jens Lehmann publicly described it as a major breach of trust and warned that moments like this can make players question whether promises inside the national team actually mean anything. Even Lothar Matthäus, while understanding the logic of trusting an experienced keeper in a major tournament, admitted the situation appeared poorly managed. Fans were even harsher. Many supporters feel Neuer is not performing at the same level that once made him untouchable. Nobody questions his legacy. He is still viewed as one of the greatest goalkeepers ever. But recent Bayern performances created doubts. People pointed to difficult moments in big matches, inconsistent form, and questioned whether his decision-making with the ball remains as reliable as before. Even his distribution, once seen as changing the position forever, started becoming part of the criticism, with some supporters arguing that risky passes now create unnecessary danger. That's why a lot of German fans believe Nagelsmann blinked under pressure. Instead of fully committing to Baumann or trusting the next generation, they feel he returned to the familiar option because of experience and expectations surrounding the World Cup. And for many people, that decision represents the bigger issue around modern Germany. Even while trying to build something new, the national team sometimes still looks emotionally connected to old solutions. The goalkeeper story only added to another growing criticism surrounding Nagelsmann: man management. The Dennis Undav situation became another talking point. After Undav came off the bench and scored a huge late winner in a friendly against Ghana, most people expected praise. Instead, Nagelsmann publicly questioned fitness levels and suggested it would affect his chances of starting at the World Cup regardless of club form. That caught people off guard, especially because Undav had been performing strongly for Stuttgart. Supporters expected confidence to be built around an in-form striker. Instead, many felt the comments created unnecessary pressure. Undav didn't stay silent either. He responded by saying that if he kept scoring, eventually the coach would have no choice but to play him. Nagelsmann later apologized and admitted the comments were poorly judged. But by then, the discussion had already exploded. For many supporters, it became another example of a manager who sometimes overthinks situations and creates tension that didn't need to exist. And fans quickly connected it to another situation. Euro 2024? That's when Nagelsmann made the huge decision to leave both Mats Hummels and Leon Goretzka out of the squad completely. Now, leaving out experienced players is part of football. That alone was never the issue. It was the timing and context that turned everything into a debate. Hummels had just helped Borussia Dortmund reach the Champions League final, and many believed he was playing some of his strongest football again. A lot of German fans genuinely thought he earned a place. So when he missed out, the reaction came instantly. Hummels openly admitted the decision hurt and said publicly he still believed he was among Germany's top defenders. Goretzka's omission also frustrated supporters who felt Germany lacked leadership, physical presence, and experience in midfield. But once again, attention shifted toward how the situation was communicated. During interviews and press conferences, Nagelsmann spoke openly about how difficult and emotionally uncomfortable those conversations had been. For some fans, that honesty was refreshing. For others, it reinforced the idea that he still has room to grow when handling big personalities and high-pressure squad decisions. And that's why the conversation around Nagelsmann remains completely divided. Some people see a coach trying to drag Germany into the future. Others see someone repeating old mistakes in a newer style. The talent is there. The ideas are there. But the biggest question still hasn't been answered. Can Germany finally build something stable again when the lights get brightest? Or are they stuck replaying the same story in a different kit? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is only getting louder. And don't forget to subscribe to Malik on Football for more football stories, deep dives, and the drama behind the game. Until the next match day, keep your boots laced, trust the process, and I'll catch you in the next one.